Hello, and welcome to the Daring to Succeed podcast. My name is Juliana Yao Jorgen, and I'm a career coach who helps introverts succeed in the workplace by unleashing their introvert superpowers. This week, I'm featuring a question to Ask a Coach. This is something I offer occasionally where you can submit a coaching question for me to answer. They're kind of like mini coaching sessions for free, and I share the response here or in my blog so that other people can benefit from it too. Today's question comes from someone who is earning her PhD in organizational leadership and is conducting a pilot project on leaders who do not have the StrengthsFinder influencing strength or the enterprise and Holland occupational type. She finds that leaders without those strengths or interests are types are often introverts. Her Ask a Coach question is, since leadership is often defined as influence, do you find that introverted leaders tend to burn out more easily than extroverts, since many skills used to influence may not be innate strengths for an introvert? I chose this question because there's so much to unpack, and I'm just fascinated by it. So let's start with the themes that the Gallup Strengths Finder considers as needed for influence. These include activator, command, communication, competition, maximizer, self assurance, significance, and what they call woo. Could all of these help with influence? Absolutely. Are those the only strengths that will ever help you influence? I would argue no. This is because how you influence depends on who you need to influence and why you need to influence them. I even find Gallup's explanation of why influence is needed to be a bit vague. They describe it as high performing teams rely on people with strong influencing themes because they take charge, speak up, and make sure others are heard. When your team needs to sell its ideas and persuade others, look to people with the following influence themes. They can help your team reach a much broader audience and convince others to aid in accomplishing your goals. When I work with coaching clients on their influencing skills, we pinpoint what, who, and why they are trying to influence and design a specific strategy for those needs that also work with their strengths and values. This is different than what we see with the Gallup explanation, which is fairly general, sounds really impressive, but can fall short in real world situations. For example, I was coaching a team lead who was frustrated because he created an efficient process for his team, but was unable to get buy in from his peers to adopt the same process. Although he didn't articulate it in Gallup terms, he was trying to influence the other team leads with presentations, persuasion, and I guess woo to win them over. And it didn't work. The problem that the other team leads didn't respond to that approach at all, not that he wasn't executing on the approach well. When we delved into his situation, he realized that what was blocking him was the other team leads didn't actually want to do the work to either explain or implement the change on their own teams. That meant no amount of convincing or influence would actually unblock his situation. He would either need to show that the work was worth the improvements from the new process, or take on the work himself to explain and implement the change on those other teams. Like many of my most successful clients, this came down to a decision he needed to make on what was more important. In this case, it was whether he actually changed the minds of his peers, which I guess we would categorize as influence, or whether he was actually just able to change and improve the process for his team and the other teams. And then let's look at the enterprising Holland type. This is also interesting because it actually just self references leadership as a preference, a strength, or a value. Because it's a circular reference, people's self identifying interest in leadership and whether they prefer it, whether they value it, really depends on what they perceive as leadership. In practice, what makes a good leader varies greatly, depending on the values of the individual leader, those they are leading, and, in this context, the company they're performing the leadership role for. So, depending on the company culture and values, other Holland personality types, such as conventional, which focus on numbers, order, and success in business, or social, which focus on helping people, teaching, and solving social problems, could actually be more valued as a leader in that role. I've also worked with many people, whether already in leadership or just considering leadership, who believe they don't have the innate leadership skills because they think they must have some combination of these strengths and preferences. So it then becomes a self fulfilling prophecy that introverts have difficulty with leadership roles because they and others expect them to have and use a specific skill set for that role. It's like that saying, when the only tool you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail. So, going back to the initial question, yes, introverted leaders can burn out more quickly than extroverts, but generally when they're trying to lead like an extrovert instead of using their own introverted skills. Introverts in leadership can have more impact with less chance of burnout when they're in roles that require or can benefit from their introversion. This can be leading a high performing team whose skills and expertise need to be brought out rather than being told to do how being told how to do work in a particular way. It can also be in situations where difficult decisions need to be made, where careful consideration to the options and the ramifications need to be assessed before action is taken. Or it can be leading other leaders, where you need to give those individuals the space to think and act on their own, rather than commanding them in a specific direction. So, as much as introversion and extroversion is still a range, the strengths and preferences for the type of work can vary between one person and another and in different environments. Okay, that's it for now. If you have any thoughts on this, I would love to hear from you. Feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'll be sure to put the link to my profile in the show notes. I'll see you next time.